Yes, well, today we are speaking with Wes Askins, and we want to thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And we know that you do have a small engine repair shop on School Street.
No, Mill Street.
I'm sorry, Mill Street, right, behind basically the school.
High school, right across from Mill Park.
Right across from Mill Park.
Yep.
So this is great. I'm glad we were able to work this out.
Me too.
So let me ask you some questions so people can get an idea of who you are.
Okay.
So where did your family live when you were a child?
When I was born, we lived at Third Lake.
Third Lake.
Yes.
Okay.
We rented a little house off of Willard Stanley, right down by the outlet of Third Lake.
Okay. Right. And how long were you there?
We were there until I was probably, I'm going to say 3 years old,
Okay.
so probably 61, as I was born in 58.
All right. And then, but then you moved.
Moved to Niblick Road in Hadley, right by the golf course.
Right by the golf course.
Yes.
And was that a house that you owned? The family?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we owned it. It was a small house.
Small house.
Yep.
Very good. Now, was it a large family? Did you have brothers and sisters, or?
I'm the middle son. I had an older brother, Monty, and a younger brother, Gary,
Okay.
who was 5 years younger than me.
Yeah.
My older brother is only 2 years older than me.
Gotcha.
Yep.
And are they around now?
My older brother, yes, he is back around here. He spent 21 years in the Navy
Oh,
and retired. He was in South Carolina, down around Columbia,
sure.
and he finally said, enough. I'm going back home.
Man, very nice. Is he happy with that decision? It's good?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
Very good. And
Yep.
I bet you are, too, that he's here. That's nice, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we waited a long time for him.
Yeah. So what did your folks do for work?
My father was an electronics engineer. And he started out working for a inventor in Luzerne. His name was Lawrence Bellinger. He worked at the Legion Hall. What is now the Legion Hall
Right.
was his little company.
Oh,
And my father worked for him. Some of the things they developed was a little pen device with an electronic eye on the end of it. Had a little battery in it. And you hooked up earphones to it. And it was for the blind.
oh my.
Blind people would put the earphones on and go through their closet looking for clothes, because the lighter the clothes, the higher the note.
Oh my
The
God.
darker the clothes, the lower the tone would be.
Right.
So blind people could match up, their clothes, light and dark.
Now, is this before your situation?
It was before I was born.
Before you were born? Isn't that amazing?
It is. Another thing
my
they
God.
invented was the Mobot.
Mobile.
It was an electronic lawnmower that had its own little doghouse, and it was programmed. There was wire buried under the lawn that in the middle of the night, this Mobot would come out, following these wires underground, would mow your lawn.
Huh.
Then go back into its little doghouse and shut off.
Okay. Did it actually work?
Yes, it worked.
Oh.
Yes, it worked, and there are some reasonable facsimiles of it
Yeah.
today.
Oh, for
still.
sure there are. For sure
This
there are.
inventor also went on to design some of the lighting for the lunar Apollo
Oh.
moon
right,
landing.
Right here in Lake Luzerne.
right in Lake Luzerne.
Had no idea. No idea. Wow.
Then after that, my father got a job at ESPY in Saratoga,
Yeah.
which is an electronics a company that makes, deals with electrical equipment.
Sure.
And electronics.
Yeah, right there. Yeah, on the west side of town.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
And he was there for a long
He
time?
was there until 1974, I believe it was,
Mm-hmm.
when they built the Wilton Developmental Center over in Wilton.
Yes.
The state institution.
Right.
Then he got a job working for the state
Mm-hmm.
as an electronics electrician,
Right. Right.
supervisor,
Right. Wow. And
where he worked until he retired.
right. So, what a career! I mean, an inventor. Oh my, that's so impressive.
Exactly.
And your mom probably was at home with the kids, or did she?
Yes, she
work?
was. No, she didn't
worked at
work.
home.
She stayed at home to
Yeah.
take care of us kids.
Um,
Until we were old enough to be able to stay. This was after we moved up on Old Stage Road.
right.
And we were old enough to, at least one of us, my older brother was old enough to, watch us.
Yeah.
And she got a job. She worked at Hall's Liquor Store.
Oh, where was that? In town here?
That was right next to the Mini Mart.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure what that building is now.
Is that Rocco's?
Well, I'm not sure if they use part of that building or
Okay.
not.
Okay. Anyway,
Uh,
yeah.
And she also worked for Dr. Mary.
Oh, sure.
Right,
We've heard.
right on Bridge Street
Oh, sure.
as a secretary.
Okay. That's another famous name.
And she used to ride her bicycle 7 miles to town
Right.
to do it.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
And most of the time, right at home.
right. Right. Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
Oh boy, I could talk to you forever. Well, so what did you do when to earn money when you were a kid? Did you have things you did to?
Once I was 11 and 12 years old, I started mowing lawns in town so that I could have some money to buy new parts and gasoline for my go-karts and mini bikes.
Oh, so you were always an engine guy.
Yes.
Okay.
It started out when I was 8 years old and we moved up onto the farm.
Yeah.
That next spring, we had an old rotor tiller that used to belong to my uncle Bertie Tubbs, who lived at the base of Potash Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
It was an old country Squire with a little 3-horse Briggs and Stratton engine on it.
Yeah.
And I used to love to get up early on a Saturday morning and go out and fiddle around and start that thing
Yeah.
and start plowing the garden.
Oh yeah. Wow.
And of course I had to soup it up and make it rev a little higher and this
Sure.
and that.
Sure.
And that's what started off my interest in mechanics.
Now, where do you think that came from to be so young and to have that kind of ability? Do you ever ponder that? Or?
Well, my grandfather, Ori Tubbs, had the welding garage where I now reside.
Okay.
And, of course, he always had equipment in and out of there, bulldozers and tractors that for the town and logging equipment that he was welding on.
Mm-hmm.
And I just loved it. I loved it.
Oh, jeez.
Can I drive that, Gramp?
Yeah.
You know,
You found your calling.
I
you could
found
say.
my calling, yes.
That's very nice.
So I used to ride my bicycle 7 miles to town,
Right.
mow lawns, and then ride all the way home.
Mm-hmm.
And with my little bit of money.
A little bit of money, yeah. Well, that's great.
And when I was 14, when I turned 14, I got a job at Second Lake Girls Camp.
Oh, sure, Pine
Right
Log.
up here. Yeah, Pine Log Camp. Yes, the girls' camp.
This is living history here.
And I was the barn boy.
Oh.
I would take care of the horses, clean the stalls, and I was just a little short guy. I was a shrimp.
Yeah.
But I would take care of the horses, clean the stalls. I would saddle them for when they needed to give a class to the girls on writing. I didn't really like it because it was English style. Not a Western saddle, it was English.
Okay. What does that mean? I'm sorry.
Well, an English saddle is only about half of a Western saddle.
Oh, smaller. Okay.
And when you ride, you got to bob up and down.
Oh, okay.
And he used to make me demonstrate to these girls. You know, he used to make me run and jump over different things. And it was a little embarrassing, but it was fun.
It was part of the job.
Correct.
So you met Frances Kinnear.
I met Mrs. Kinnear, yes. Clear back from Sunday school when we'd go around collecting for UNICEF or in the Boy Scouts selling poppies and yes.
Well, she ran that camp.
Not at that time.
Oh, not at that time.
By the name of Laddish, Bill Laddish.
Okay.
Was my boss.
Okay.
At that time.
Okay. But I know that Frances had that. She was involved with it at any rate.
Okay.
Yeah.
It might have been before my time, or maybe I really didn't pay attention because
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? Anyway.
And I'd ride my bicycle down there and work and ride back also.
Yes.
And I worked there until that summer, until August came, and I got a job at the Saratoga racetrack.
Did you?
Yes. Working in the print shop, making the programs for the daily races.
Oh, you've done it all.
Where my older brother had worked the previous summer, and him and I both worked that August, that first year that I worked there.
Yeah.
And it was a lot better paying job.
Oh, sure.
But it only lasted for a month.
A month, right.
But I had to go back to school anyhow.
Right, exactly. Did you ride your bike to Saratoga?
No, I did not.
Okay.
We rode with my father, who worked at SB,
right.
Would drop us off every morning.
That worked out then.
And then post time was 1 o'clock.
Yep.
They would either call the print shop and say, all okay, and we could go home, or they'd say, I need 3,000 more, or 5,000.
Okay. Depending on the crowd.
Depending on the crowd, yes.
Very good.
When we got out of work, my older brother and I would walk over to Espy.
Yep.
We'd go and watch the races until it was time to go and catch my father.
Sure.
When he left Espy.
Sure. That really worked out. That was nice. So now this is kind of a general question, but can you describe what the town was like when you were growing up, and how has it changed? Do you have anything to say on that? What was town like? What was it like being a kid in Lake Luzerne at that time?
Well, the only time we really spent in town is when we would go down to visit my grandfather and grandmother that lived where I do. And while Ma was in there visiting, my older brother Monty and we were out running around the town, up to the school, spying on the janitors.
Yeah.
And, over in the park. And it was safe. The town was safe back then.
Uh-huh. What do you mean?
Well, it isn't like the town was never safe, but it was quiet.
Quiet, okay.
It was quiet when we were kids. And in the 70s, it started, there used to be a bandstand right where our bank is now. Mm-hmm. And all the kids around town, and we'd all get together and hang out at the bandstand.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
At night.
Yeah.
Other than that, I didn't have, like I say, we didn't spend a whole lot of time in town until I was old enough to drive and would go down and hang out in town.
Sure. But just the idea of a lot of kids being together outside is very different from
Absolutely.
Today.
You won't find that anywhere anymore.
Yeah.
They're all playing video games and you know,
Yeah.
doing their thing.
Yeah.
Which I thought was great back then. You know, that we'd all get together and get along. And
So, yeah, absolutely. So, you had some free time, and what did you do when you didn't have to work or help at home?
When I didn't have to work or help at home, I either had a mini bike or a go-kart all the time since I was 11 years old. So I was either working on or riding my go-kart or mini bike. Then we even, because of the money my older brother and I were making, we'd work at the Saratoga racetrack every August. Well, long about time I was 15 probably, which would have been my probably second year at the track.
Yeah.
My cousin, George the Jip Johnson, had a gun shop down in Corinth.
Okay.
And he also sold motorcycles, little motorcycles.
Yeah.
Well, it was too much of a temptation driving by there every day.
Right.
When we had a couple $100 in our pocket.
Gotcha. I get
So
the
we
yeah.
both bought these Jawa 50cc Jawa Golden Sport little motorcycles. And then we were all over.
Yeah.
We would ride from Old Stage up on the horse trails up the Hall Hill.
Yeah.
Horse trails over to Hidden Valley, and come out to the ranch house, which you probably have never heard of.
Nope.
Which was a little restaurant right next to the the Silver Dollar.
Okay.
Which my aunt and uncle owned the Silver Dollar, the bar, and they had also built the ranch house and rented it out, leased it out as a restaurant.
And that's all on Route 9N.
Right on 9N, right on the corner of 9 and Hidden Valley Road.
Okay. Well, you have deep roots here.
Oh, yes.
Oh, my God. That is amazing. So, who were your good friends, and do you still see them at all?
Yes. We had neighbors up the road, the Bennetts.
That would be John and...
No, that would have been Myron and Willis.
Okay.
Myron had boys and girls, and his wife, Cynthia, from a previous marriage, had 2 children, David and Leanne, which David is about a year older than me, and Leanne was my older brother's age, 2 years older than me. So David and I actually knew each other before we even moved to Podunk, because we were in the same class at church. What do you, nursery, not nursery. What do you call it downstairs after the nursery school? Is that what it was at the church? Yeah.
Like you would go after the service?
After the service.
Okay. Downstairs.
Or maybe while the service was going on, we would go downstairs, you know, to get our children's, I think it was called nurseries.
But you were getting your own religious instruction?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
And
so David was a good friend of mine. I had good friends in school that sometimes on Saturdays would come up and spend the weekend with me, because we had horses, goats, chickens, ducks.
Right. It
was a farm.
You said Podunk.
Yes.
What's Podunk?
Podunk Hollow is where there's a mountain up there called Podunk Mountain.
Okay, didn't know that.
So basically that whole valley was Podunk Hollow.
Podunk Hollow.
Yes.
And that's Old Stage Road.
4 miles up Old Stage Road, right to the end of the pavement.
Okay.
The dirt road continues to Warrensburg.
I understand that. Did you ever take that road to Warrensburg?
Oh, yes, on my mini bikes and go-karts.
That's amazing.
And riding horses.
Yeah.
And, yes,
Did people drive to Warrensburg on that road?
Not really so much at that time. At that time, nobody lived up that way.
Okay.
And until there was a place up there that was owned by a Dagger. Dagger, who was a wildlife enthusiast. He had a great big chicken house that he used to raise quail, ring-necked pheasant, and turn them loose. He had made a nice pond from the creek that comes down out of Pine Notch and Pine Swamp. He had dammed up and dug out and had a nice pond. Had rainbow trout in there that he would feed, and right there, when he died and left, I think it was his nephew, Boyce Rawson, bought the place. He had a wife, 3 boys, and a daughter. So then they had to plow the road all the way up to there.
Sure, okay.
But the school bus would turn around there. They never plowed that road in the winter all the way to Warrensburg.
Okay.
It was only plowed to Rawson's. And from there on up to Warrensburg, the trees, branches hung over the road.
Oh, sure.
So you were like driving through a tunnel.
Gotcha.
Back then.
But that's why they call it Old Stage Road, because
Old Stage Road.
it went all the way through.
They say the old stage headed up, and all points north would go up through there.
Interesting. So, so your friendships were based on the affinity for motorcycles?
Well, my friends weren't. Well, the one friend I had, he had a go-kart too. But he wasn't into it like I am.
Okay,
like I was.
Right. So you had other friends, and what did you do with them?
Well, I was a Cub Scout. My mother was the den leader. So I had friends in the Cub Scouts. Then, after Cub Scouts, we were Weblos.
Yep.
In which my mother was the pack leader. And then when I went into Boy Scouts, my father was the scoutmaster.
Really? So your whole family is community-minded and doing things in town?
Yes, my parents were very involved with the church down here. And yes, they were hunters. They instilled in us hunting. So we had BB guns when we first moved to Podunk, you know, and you know, we eliminated, I'm sorry to say, a lot of chipmunks and barn swallows.
Yeah. Well, they went on to greater things.
Yes.
We hope.
We moved them on to
greater things. So now I have to know, I've seen you play guitar. Who taught you to play?
Well, my father used to play.
Oh.
Not just amateurly, which basically that's kind of what I am. So he had this acoustic guitar that we had there at the house, and you know, us kids sometimes when we were bored, you know, would get that out and pretend we were playing, and I always wished I really knew how to play it and play it better.
Yeah.
And so basically, it wasn't until after I lost my sight that I really started trying to learn it.
Oh.
I got in guitar instructions for the blind.
Oh, okay.
You know, they're teaching me chords and different picking styles. And I played what I could get out of it, and what I couldn't get, I didn't play.
I understand. And so when was that? When you were 16, 17?
No, that was I guess probably I was 19.
19.
Yeah, about the year after my car accident.
Okay.
I got an electric guitar from a very close classmate of mine.
Mm-hmm.
Her name was Diane LeClaire,
Mm-hmm.
who actually, when I was in the hospital, she was over there nearly every day
Oh.
to see me.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And actually, when I got out of intensive care, I was in intensive care for 1 month.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And then I went to third floor. She actually took the initiative to wash my hair that hadn't been washed since my accident. It kind of still had, dried blood in it.
Sure.
And stuff.
Sure.
And
My God.
and she saw to my needs and was there,
Yeah.
quite often.
And had she been a friend before?
She was
had
friends
been.
with me, yes.
Okay.
Last 2 years of school, I was in BOCES,
Mm-hmm.
and she was also in BOCES taking cosmetology.
Yeah.
And so we'd sit. She was a very good-looking girl.
Sure.
So I would sit and talk with her
Yeah.
and wish she was my girlfriend.
Sure. Well. But so were you ever in a band?
Yes. Yes. Not until, let me see, I'm going to say, about, in probably 1998, I bought myself a Fender electric guitar and amplifier.
Mm-hmm.
And I started practicing and trying a little bit harder
Yeah.
to understand it.
Yeah.
And then after the fire at my garage in 1999,
Mm-hmm.
I became good friends with Tim Rodrigue,
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
who was a very, very good guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
And to this day, I still don't know why, but he enjoyed playing along with me. I would give him some rhythm, and he would take off on the lead,
Mm-hmm.
and I would sing and play all the songs I knew, which
Sure.
mainly were classic country.
Sure. Love it. Yeah.
And so we played 2, 3, 4 hours in a session,
Oh, yeah.
And finally, we thought we'd get out there and do our thing, So we called us Just Picking.
Just picking.
Just Picking is what we were when we started out, playing at Melba Mays, the
Yep.
bowling alley, and different venues. And then we eventually went to the Junkyard Dogs.
That's what you're called. That's
With
good.
the Junkyard Dogs we were. And we acquired a drum player, Vinnie Rizzi, and also Scott Price, who was a very fluent guitar player that would sit in with us sometimes up to Melba Mays. We played a lot of benefits at Melba Mays.
Yeah.
And that's where we get, few people sitting in with us.
Very nice. Boy, you had some great friends.
Yes.
You've been blessed
Oh,
with the people that have come into your life and done things with you.
absolutely.
Really amazing. Really amazing.
It really is.
Yeah. Well, you're that way. You're somebody who you're easy to get to know, I think.
Yes. Yes.
You're not
absolutely.
Yeah. So I guess I feel like I have to ask you, what caused your loss of sight?
Well, I had a car that I put together myself up in Podunk. It was a 1960 Ford Falcon, which I pulled the engine and transmission and rear end out of and dropped in a V8, small V8, a 289 with a 4-speed transmission and a Mustang rear end.
Uh-huh. You completely redid it. You completely okay. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I was 16 years old when I started the project.
Yeah.
And eventually finished it the winter and spring of 76.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I started working at Roaring Brook in either March or April of 76, wanting to save up enough money to get my car registered and insured and on the road.
Sure.
Because I had my permit and I could drive my parents' cars around, but,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it wasn't my hot rod.
Right. Right. What color was it?
It was a pale blue.
Pale blue. All right.
Pale blue.
Had you painted it?
No.
Okay.
Nope, I was not a body man.
Okay.
There's pictures of it in my scrapbook you
Okay.
may want to take pictures of.
Okay.
There are 1 or 2 pictures when it was all together. And there's a bunch of pictures after it smashed up.
Oh, okay.
On September 15th, I was still working at Roaring Brook. I got home from work. I used to have to stay till the dishes were done, about 8 or 8:30 at night. I'd get out of work. So I went home, I got cleaned up. My friend at the time, Lynn Day, he stopped up to the house, and we decided we were going to take my car downtown to visit Steve LeClaire, Diana's brother.
Brother, okay. Mm-hmm. And they lived downtown.
They lived on Stewart Drive,
Okay.
off of Rose Avenue,
Yep.
right in town.
Right.
So we went down there and visited them a while. And then we figured we'd head back up to my house. I'm not sure what we were going to do.
Right.
Maybe we were going to get his car and go to Lake George.
Sure.
I'm not sure.
Right.
But for some reason, when we left LeClaire's, I'm not sure if I offered to or he wanted to drive my car.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
So, unfortunately, I gave in and let him drive.
Yeah.
We left there, came up 9N.
Yeah.
I wanted him to turn down Church Street, which comes out on Main Street, almost across from the bandstand.
Yep.
So we could see who was hanging out there, you know, what was going on there.
Sure.
Unfortunately, as we stopped at Church Street, one of my rivals went by with his old Ford.
Oh, okay.
I told Lynn, the driver who was driving my car, to stay right behind him, and we would pass him up on the middle school flats.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Show him who's boss.
Right. Up by the bowling alley.
Correct.
Right,
Past the
okay.
bowling alley. Yep.
Okay. Yep.
So that's what we did. And up just past the bowling alley, I don't know if you know it, it's a slight rise in 9N there.
Yep.
Right by KOA.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So we were behind him and several cars ahead of him.
Right.
This was at 9:15
Mm-hmm.
on September 15th. I don't think it was totally dark, but
Right.
it was a little foggy of an evening.
Sure.
So once we got over that knoll and it was clear to pass, I told him, I said, kick it right down into second and blow these guys off.
Yeah.
Well, he did that, and as we got out into the left lane, we saw that there was a car coming.
Right.
Too close to get by all this traffic that was ahead of us. There was at least 4 cars,
Right.
counting the one we wanted to pass.
Right.
So he started slowing down and hit the brakes to pull in behind the car ahead of us.
Yeah.
who also hit his brakes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I think the driver of my car really hit the brakes.
Yeah.
And I was used to it. I could do it without even thinking about it.
Mm-hmm.
But my Falcon needed a brake job. And if you hit the brakes right off the bat hard without pumping them a few times first,
mm-hmm.
that right front wheel would catch and just about yank the wheel out of your hand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's what happened. We went off the road, and right there in front of Sunset Trailer Park was a pine tree that three of us couldn't get our arms around. Probably one of the biggest pine trees in Warren County.
Yeah.
Right out close to the road that we slammed into.
Mm-hmm.
A second earlier or later, and we'd have missed it.
Right.
It was a very, very bad accident.
Mm-hmm.
I was trapped in the vehicle with numerous injuries. Severe facial injuries. It basically split my bone structure in half, my top and bottom jaw. I've still got wires in my bottom jaw. The impact blew the left eye right out of my head. It was out on my cheek. It busted the hard palate out of the roof of my mouth. They had to cut a hole in my... They had to give me a trach because I was drowning in my own blood. I had a compound fracture of my left arm that was, of course, bleeding severely. Those were the most visible injuries I had. I also, when they finally used the jaws of life to get me out of the car, my Uncle Joe, one of the men that I thought the sun rose and set for, was an EMT on the emergency squad.
Yeah.
And he was always a little squeamish of blood.
Yeah.
Not when I was in there.
Right. Oh. Uh-huh.
He jumped right in and took right over.
Yeah.
No matter how bad I was bleeding, he was there for me. In fact, in the hospital, or in the ambulance, on the way to the hospital, where Judge George Evans was driving, who never drove fast.
The insurance guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
He would never speed on the way to the hospital. That night he did.
Yeah.
And on the way, I can remember telling my Uncle Joe, "Don't leave me, Uncle Joe."
Yeah.
And he said, "I've never left you in the woods yet, have I?" Because we used to hunt with my Uncle Joe. And we were like this.
Yeah.
I worked with him and hunted with him.
Yeah.
So, I also fractured 2 vertebrae in my back, broke all the bones in my left leg and foot, and contused one of my lungs. So, they didn't think I was going to live. So, Dr. Governality was my, what do you call it? He was a doctor that worked on bones and, arms and legs. They told him, "Don't spend a lot of time on that arm. We don't think he's going to make it anyhow." So he put my arm back together. I can only move it this far. But they had my parents sign permission for them to amputate it that night.
Wow.
So I'm very lucky to still have my arm.
Yes.
Which I have used.
Yeah, I've seen you use it.
That's my bow arm.
Yeah. Oh, you do bow and arrow?
I did.
You did? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that would be my bow arm,
Mm-hmm.
which I couldn't straighten out to lock my arm, so it was a little tough
Yeah.
holding it while I drew.
Mm-hmm.
But it's never let me down.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And I'm very fortunate to still have it.
Yeah. Hats off to that doctor who didn't amputate.
Correct. And that was in 1976. In it was probably 1980, I got run over in my own driveway by my younger brother.
Oh.
And I had to go to the emergency room, and Dr. Governale again was there for me.
Oh.
Sewed my head up, sewed my elbow up, removed a bone splinter from my left knee and sewed that up.
He said, I know you.
Yes.
Now, was that
Back
Glens
at-
Falls?
Yes, in
Glens
Glens Falls Hospital, yes. Yep. Dr. Cloyd Kirshner was my plastic surgeon that did all my facial surgery.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in ICU, my whole head was swelled up like a basketball.
Oh.
I can remember taking my right hand and trying to feel in my nose. There was no nose. These cheeks and everything was blowed out so far, there was hardly even a nose there.
Wow.
And my jaws, my teeth were totally wired together.
So, you ended up with no sight, a little sight?
No vision at all.
No vision.
My left eye, they had to remove it.
The one that came out.
The one that came out,
Yeah.
Yep, they couldn't do anything with it. This eye is artificial.
Oh.
I went to Sturbridge, Massachusetts to get this eye. The right eye, where the optic nerve goes through the skull to the brain,
Yeah.
my skull was fractured right across that hole and cut that optic nerve right in two, leaving me totally blind.
Okay. Well, that's very powerful story. How did that affect you emotionally? That being all of a sudden loss of sight and being so banged up.
Well, it was kind of hard to make sense out of things, because the whole 2 months I was in the hospital, every 4 hours I was on. I get a shot of Demerol.
Oh, okay.
For pain.
Yeah.
So reality really. Sometimes I didn't know if I was blind or not, or you know, it was hard to really come to terms.
Yeah.
I got out of the hospital on November 14th, and I came home. When I came home, I had what they call a halo on my head that was screwed into my head on the sides and one on the top. They had run wires under my skin, down under my cheekbones, to my top jaw, which wasn't healing properly. They re-broke it and put these wires in that were hooked to my halo with rubber bands that would try and pull my teeth back to being straight up and down.
Gotcha. Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah. I got that off the day before Thanksgiving, is when they took the halo off.
Okay.
So I was kind of in bed at home. It was still difficult standing after being horizontal for so long.
Yeah.
You know, I could only stand for a while. Of course, I only weighed 115 pounds when I came out because my jaws were wired shut. I couldn't eat anything. I was only sucking through a straw.
Right.
On which to suck through the straw, I would have to plug my nose because I had it busted the hard palate out of the roof of my mouth. I could almost stick my tongue out my nose.
Oh my God. So we were talking about your emotional response to your blindness, and how did you react?
Well, once I could get my bearings, I started a big learning situation. You know, learning how to try to deal with everyday things, you know, not being able to see. So I started inventing little tricks on how to do this and what I shouldn't do, and, you know, and emotional, being home was great. My older brother was in the Navy. It was just me and my younger brother and my mother at home. And my younger brother, who was 5 years younger than me, and just little Gary, before my car accident, became my buddy, my best buddy, after. So,
yeah.
I still wanted to be productive and amuse myself and do something with my life. So I had been into mechanics, so I couldn't imagine me doing anything else except mechanics.
Right.
So, you know, that very next spring after my car accident, I got my younger brother Gary and I drugged my Suzuki dirt bike out of the barn, and I started learning how to do things without sight, and I started teaching Gary how to do things, you know. He started learning from me how to do things, and
that sounds like that was good for you. It helped you to be teaching.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. So, you know, I'd ride it around by myself a little bit there in the garden or in the yard, and Gary would take us for rides, and so after that it was just, you know, I would buy different old Mustangs and stuff that we would use for kind of a field car, and tinker with, and
wow.
So
you didn't miss a beat.
No.
You got right into it.
Yes.
Beautiful.
So I started my own education on how to perform different tasks, you know, without being able to see. You know, using my ears, my nose, my taste.
Right. Yep.
And these 10 little eyeballs right here. You've only got 2.
Yeah.
I've got 10.
You've got 10. That's great. That's great.
So, you know,
just wow. Wow.
And emotionally, things started getting better, you know. I wasn't left out in the dark by my friends. They would come up and take me out, you know.
Nice.
You know, for the evening, and still trying to seek some type of normalcy.
Right.
I'm still trying to this day to seek to be normal.
How's it going?
It's going great.
Good.
I have to compete with sighted people, but in my business, I haven't found a sighted person better than me.
Mm-hmm. Well, you fixed my snowmobile, I know. I mean, my snowblower, I know that, so.
Yep.
Yeah.
And in my business, I've had equipment that had been taken to Smith equipment.
Oh, sure. Mm-hmm.
Falls Farm and Garden equipment.
Mm-hmm.
Emmerich Sales and Service. And a repair shop in Northville.
Mm-hmm.
That could not fix the equipment.
Mm-hmm.
And it came to me.
Wow.
And when it left, it was in perfect running condition.
Oh, beautiful. Well, that is, I'm kind of speechless, but we have to move on. So, did faith come into play in dealing with your blindness?
I knew there was somebody there watching over me and helping me. So yes,
Okay.
I'm a believer.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not as devout as my mother,
Uh-huh.
but yes, I'm a believer.
It helped.
It helped.
It
Yes.
helped. Okay. Well, this is a remarkable experience here. We will stop, and but we will continue shortly. And thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to part 2.
Me too.
Okay, good.